Imagine this moment as a blank canvas. Everything you've ever been, your successes, your failures, your joys, and your sorrows, is nothing more than the first layer of paint. Now pause. What if I told you that your masterpiece isn't finished, that you have the power to wipe it clean and start anew, not once, but as many times as you desire? Why is this so important? Because most of us live clinging to an idea of ourselves that feels safe, but is it alive? Is it free? This is not just a speech, it's an invitation, a call to those who feel trapped in the walls they've built to rebuild themselves, not with fear, but with curiosity, courage, and a playful heart. Life, in its infinite complexity, is an intricate dance of beginnings and endings, a ceaseless rhythm that moves through creation, destruction, and renewal. To truly live, one must embrace these cycles rather than resist them. Consider the natural world. The changing seasons are a vivid reminder of this eternal flow. In spring, the earth awakens with vibrant life, blossoms emerge, and the air hums with renewal. Yet this abundance is not eternal. Autumn arrives, leaves fall, and winter blankets the land in stillness and quietude. But this apparent stillness is not death, it is preparation for the next spring. Within this rhythm lies an essential truth. Life is not static. It is dynamic, ever-changing, and alive with the potential for rebirth. This cyclical nature of existence is not confined to the external world. It exists within each of us. Think of the times in your own life when you felt as though something had ended, a job, a relationship, a dream. The immediate reaction might have been grief, frustration, or even despair. These emotions are natural because endings often feel like losses. But what if, instead of perceiving them as finalities, we saw them as transitions? What if every perceived ending was in fact an opportunity for something new to begin? When a caterpillar enters the chrysalis, it undergoes a process that appears destructive. It dissolves into a state of formlessness, losing its identity as a caterpillar. To the untrained eye, this might seem like the end of its journey. But within that transformative chaos, something extraordinary happens. The blueprint for a butterfly emerges. The same is true for us. In moments of upheaval, when the structures of our lives seem to crumble, we are not facing annihilation. We are standing at the precipice of transformation. Yet, embracing these cycles requires a certain courage, a willingness to trust the process, even when the outcome is uncertain. This trust is not blind faith, but an acknowledgement of life's inherent wisdom. Just as the tree does not resist shedding its leaves in autumn, we too must learn to release what no longer serves us. Clinging to the old, to the familiar, only prolongs our suffering and delays our growth. The tree does not mourn its bare branches because it understands that its essence is not tied to its leaves. In letting go, it creates space for new growth, for fresh possibilities to take root. For many of us, the fear of change is rooted in a desire for control. We strive to create a sense of permanence in an impermanent world, building walls around what we perceive as safe and stable. But life has its own plans. It will shake those walls, erode them, and sometimes demolish them entirely. These moments can feel like catastrophes, but they are also invitations. They invite us to step beyond our comfort zones, to confront the unknown, and to rediscover ourselves in ways we never imagined. To embrace life's cycles is to understand that growth is not linear. It is a spiral, looping back on itself, revisiting old wounds and challenges with new eyes. This perspective shifts our focus from getting it right to simply being present with what is. In the midst of chaos, there is order. In destruction, there is creation. Each moment, no matter how painful or joyous, is part of the greater tapestry of our lives. When you begin to see life this way, a profound sense of freedom emerges. You are no longer bound by the fear of failure or the pressure to maintain an illusion of perfection. Instead, you become like the river, flowing around obstacles, carving new paths, and always moving forward. You realize that even the most turbulent waters eventually lead to calm seas. This understanding transforms challenges into opportunities, losses into lessons, and endings into beginnings. The idea of perfection is one of humanity's most persistent illusions. We chase it relentlessly, believing that if we can just achieve it, whether in our careers, relationships, appearance, or accomplishments, we will finally feel whole, fulfilled, and complete. Yet perfection, like the horizon, recedes the closer we get to it. It is an illusion, a construct of the mind, and in its pursuit, we often lose touch with what is real, vital, and alive within us. This quest for an unattainable ideal creates a disconnection, a kind of internal tension that leaves us perpetually dissatisfied. It blinds us to the beauty of imperfection, which is where true growth and authenticity reside. The origins of this illusion can often be traced to societal conditioning. From a young age, we are told what is ideal and what is not. Success is often defined by external measures: wealth, status, beauty, and achievement. Failure, on the other hand, is seen as something to be avoided at all costs. This dichotomy creates a rigid framework through which we view ourselves and the world, leading us to believe that anything less than perfect is unworthy. We internalize this message, and it shapes our self-perception, leaving little room for vulnerability or the natural process of trial and error. In truth, perfection is not a destination, it is a myth. Life itself is inherently imperfect, and it is this very imperfection that makes it rich, dynamic, and meaningful. Consider a piece of handmade pottery. Its slight asymmetries and irregularities are what make it unique and valuable. In the same way, the flaws and imperfections within us are not evidence of failure, but rather the marks of our humanity. They tell the story of where we have been, what we have endured, and how we have grown. To deny them is to deny our essence, our depth, and our individuality. The pursuit of perfection often leads to paralysis. When we set impossibly high standards for ourselves, we become afraid to take risks, to try new things, or to step into the unknown. We fear that anything less than perfect will be judged, criticized, or dismissed, and so we hesitate. This hesitation stifles our creativity and prevents us from fully engaging with life. We become spectators, waiting for the right moment, the right conditions, or the right version of ourselves to take action. But life does not wait. It moves forward with or without our participation, and the opportunity to grow and learn can slip through our fingers if we remain stuck in the pursuit of an illusion. Ironically, it is often in our so-called failures that we find the greatest opportunities for growth and transformation. A crack in the foundation allows us to see what lies beneath, revealing strengths we did not know we possessed and teaching us lessons we might never have learned otherwise. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is an integral part of the journey. It is through failure that we discover our resilience, adaptability, and capacity for change. These qualities are far more valuable than any fleeting notion of perfection. When we let go of the need to be perfect, we create space for authenticity to emerge. Authenticity is not about being flawless, it is about being real. It is about embracing the messiness of life, the ups and downs, the mistakes and missteps, and finding meaning in the midst of it all. This shift in perspective allows us to connect more deeply with ourselves and with others. When we are no longer hiding behind a facade of perfection, we become more relatable, more approachable, and more human. Our imperfections become bridges, connecting us to others who are also navigating their own unique journeys. To release the illusion of perfection is to reclaim our freedom. It is an act of rebellion against a world that often tells us we are not enough as we are. It is a declaration that we are willing to show up, to try, to fail, and to learn without the burden of needing to be flawless. It is a recognition that life's beauty lies not in its polished surface, but in its raw, unfiltered reality. Letting go of the old self is one of the most profound acts of transformation we can undertake. The old self represents the accumulation of our past experiences, beliefs, habits, and identities. It is familiar and often feels safe, even when it no longer serves us. Yet, clinging to this outdated version of ourselves can keep us stuck, preventing us from evolving into who we are meant to become. This process of letting go is not about rejecting or invalidating the past, but about recognizing when it is time to release what no longer aligns with our growth. The old self is often constructed from a mix of inherited patterns, societal expectations, and personal coping mechanisms. Many of these were adopted unconsciously, shaped by the environments we grew up in and the people we surrounded ourselves with. These influences helped us navigate certain stages of life, but over time they may become limitations. For instance, a belief that served to protect us in childhood, such as the idea that vulnerability is dangerous, can become a barrier to forming deep and meaningful connections as adults. Similarly, habits and routines that once brought comfort can begin to feel restrictive when they no longer reflect our current values or aspirations. Letting go of the old self requires self-awareness. It begins with an honest examination of who we are and how we are living. This process can be uncomfortable because it forces us to confront aspects of ourselves that we may prefer to ignore. It requires us to ask difficult questions. Are my actions and choices aligned with my true values? Am I holding on to roles, labels, or relationships that limit my growth? What fears or attachments are preventing me from moving forward? These questions are not meant to provoke guilt or self-judgment, but to shine a light on the areas of our lives where transformation is needed. One of the greatest challenges of letting go is the fear of the unknown. The old self, no matter how outdated or constraining, feels familiar. It provides a sense of identity, a reference point for understanding ourselves and the world. To let go of this identity can feel like stepping into a void, an uncharted territory where we are no longer certain of who we are. This fear is natural, but it is also a sign that we are on the edge of growth. Transformation often requires us to leave the safety of the known and venture into the unfamiliar, trusting that something new and more aligned with our essence will emerge. This process is not linear or instant. It is more like peeling away the layers of an onion, each layer revealing deeper truths about who we are. At times, the process may feel cyclical, as old patterns resurface and challenge us to release them once again. This is not a sign of failure, but of progress. Each cycle brings greater clarity and a deeper understanding of ourselves. Over time, we begin to notice that the attachments we once clung to so tightly no longer have the same hold on us. We begin to feel lighter, freer, and more connected to our authentic selves. Letting go of the old self also requires compassion. It is important to honor the version of ourselves that got us to where we are today. The old self, with all its flaws and limitations, was doing the best it could with the knowledge and resources it had at the time. By approaching this process with kindness and gratitude, we can release the old self without resentment or regret. We can acknowledge its role in our journey and thank it for the lessons it has taught us. This act of release is not about erasing the past, but about integrating its wisdom while shedding the parts that no longer serve us. It is about creating space for something new to take root. The old self is like a cocoon that once provided protection and structure but must be left behind for the butterfly to emerge. By letting go, we open ourselves to the possibility of transformation, allowing our true essence to shine through. The power of choice is one of the most profound and defining aspects of the human experience. At every moment, we are presented with the opportunity to decide who we want to be, how we want to respond, and what path we want to follow. This power is both liberating and daunting because it places the responsibility for our lives squarely in our own hands. It reminds us that we are not passive recipients of fate, but active participants in shaping our reality. While circumstances may influence us, they do not dictate who we become. The act of choosing, again and again, allows us to align with our values, aspirations, and true essence. Choice is the foundation of personal transformation. It begins with the recognition that we are not bound by the past or by the limitations others have placed upon us. Often people fall into the trap of believing they have no choice, that their circumstances, history, or environment dictate their path. This belief can feel comforting because it absolves them of responsibility, but it is also a form of self-imposed limitation. When we acknowledge our power to choose, we take ownership of our lives. This ownership is not about blaming ourselves for challenges, but about reclaiming our agency to respond to them in a way that empowers us. Each choice we make, no matter how small, has a ripple effect. The food we eat, the words we speak, the way we spend our time, all of these choices contribute to the person we are becoming. This realization can be overwhelming because it highlights the weight of our decisions. Yet it is also a source of immense potential. Every moment is a chance to recalibrate, to step closer to the person we wish to be. Even when we falter or make choices that do not align with our values, we are given another opportunity to choose differently. This continuous cycle of choosing allows us to grow and evolve over time. Making choices requires clarity and courage. Clarity comes from understanding what truly matters to us, what we value, and what we want to prioritize. This understanding is not always easy to uncover because it requires introspection and honesty. It often means peeling back the layers of societal expectations, inherited beliefs, and external pressures to discover our authentic desires. Once we have this clarity, the act of choosing becomes more intentional. We are no longer making decisions based on fear, habit, or external validation, but on a deep sense of alignment with our true selves. Courage is equally essential because making choices, especially transformative ones, often involves risk. Choosing to change careers, end a relationship, or pursue a dream can feel daunting because it requires us to step into the unknown. The fear of failure, judgment, or discomfort can make us hesitate, but it is precisely in these moments of hesitation that courage is most needed. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act in spite of it. It is the recognition that growth and fulfillment often lie on the other side of uncertainty. Another important aspect of choice is the willingness to take responsibility for the outcomes of our decisions. This does not mean that every choice will lead to success or that we will always make the right decision. In fact, mistakes are an inevitable part of the process. But even in our mistakes, there is value. Each choice, whether it leads to success or failure, teaches us something about ourselves and the world around us. By taking responsibility for our choices, we cultivate resilience and a deeper sense of self-awareness. We learn to trust ourselves even when the path is unclear. The power of choice also reminds us of our interconnectedness. While our decisions are deeply personal, they often have an impact on others. This interconnectedness calls for a sense of mindfulness and compassion in our choices. When we act with awareness of how our decisions affect those around us, we contribute to a greater sense of harmony and understanding. This does not mean sacrificing our own needs or desires, but finding a balance that honors both our individuality and our collective humanity. To embrace the power of choice is to embrace our role as creators of our own lives. It is to recognize that, no matter our circumstances, we have the ability to shape our experience and define our path. This recognition is both humbling and empowering, for it reminds us that we are not static beings but dynamic, ever-evolving participants in the unfolding story of our lives. Becoming comfortable with discomfort is a necessary step in the journey of growth and transformation. Discomfort is often viewed as something to be avoided, a signal that something is wrong or out of balance. Yet discomfort is not inherently negative. It is a natural response to change, uncertainty, and challenge. In many ways, it is the very catalyst that pushes us to evolve. When we understand this, we begin to see discomfort not as an enemy, but as a companion on the path to self-discovery and fulfillment. It becomes a guide pointing us toward the areas of our lives where growth is most needed. Discomfort arises whenever we step outside of our comfort zones, those familiar spaces where we feel safe, secure, and in control. These zones are not inherently bad, they provide stability and a sense of grounding. However, they can also become prisons, keeping us from exploring new possibilities and realizing our potential. Growth always requires us to move beyond these boundaries, to venture into the unknown where we are faced with challenges, uncertainties, and risks. This movement is uncomfortable because it disrupts the equilibrium we have grown accustomed to, forcing us to confront our fears, doubts, and insecurities. The initial instinct when faced with discomfort is often to retreat. This reaction is deeply ingrained, a survival mechanism designed to protect us from harm. Yet in the modern world, many of the discomforts we encounter are not threats to our physical safety, but opportunities for personal growth. The fear of public speaking, for example, is not a signal of impending danger, but a challenge to overcome self-doubt and develop confidence. Similarly, the discomfort of learning a new skill, pursuing a passion, or facing difficult emotions is not a sign that we are failing, but an indication that we are stretching ourselves beyond our current limits. To become comfortable with discomfort, we must first change our relationship with it. This begins with acknowledging that discomfort is a natural and necessary part of life. It is not something to be feared or avoided, but embraced as a sign of progress. When we reframe discomfort in this way, it loses much of its power over us. Instead of viewing it as a barrier, we see it as a doorway to new experiences, insights, and capabilities. This shift in perspective allows us to approach discomfort with curiosity rather than resistance, asking not how can I escape this, but what can I learn from this? Another key to navigating discomfort is developing resilience. Resilience is the ability to endure challenges and setbacks without losing sight of our goals or sense of self. It is not about suppressing discomfort or pretending it doesn't exist, but about learning to sit with it, to let it pass through us without being overwhelmed. This requires patience and practice. The more we expose ourselves to discomfort in small, manageable doses, the more we build our capacity to handle it. Over time, situations that once felt unbearable begin to feel less daunting, and we develop a greater sense of confidence in our ability to navigate life's uncertainties. Mindfulness is also a powerful tool in becoming comfortable with discomfort. By cultivating awareness of the present moment, we can observe our discomfort without being consumed by it. Mindfulness teaches us to recognize the sensations, thoughts, and emotions that arise during moments of discomfort and to accept them without judgment. This acceptance does not mean passivity, but a willingness to face reality as it is. In doing so, we create space for growth and transformation to occur naturally, without the added burden of resistance or self-criticism. Discomfort also has a way of revealing truths about ourselves. It shines a light on our fears, limitations, and unexamined beliefs, giving us the opportunity to confront and challenge them. This process can be uncomfortable in itself, but it is also deeply liberating. When we face our discomfort head-on, we often discover that it is not as overwhelming as we imagined. We realize that we are capable of enduring more than we thought, and that the rewards of stepping into discomfort far outweigh the temporary unease it brings. Through this process, discomfort becomes a teacher, showing us where we need to grow and guiding us toward our highest potential. It teaches us resilience, self-awareness, and courage. It reminds us that life is not meant to be static or easy, but dynamic and full of challenges that shape us into stronger, wiser, and more compassionate beings. By learning to embrace discomfort, we open ourselves to a richer, more fulfilling experience of life. The act of rebuilding oneself is not simply about starting over, but about creating something entirely new from the pieces of who we once were. It is an opportunity to take the lessons, experiences, and fragments of our past and use them to construct a version of ourselves that is more authentic, resilient, and aligned with our true purpose. This process requires both destruction and creation, a willingness to let go of what no longer serves us, and the courage to envision what could be. It is a deeply personal journey, one that calls for self-reflection, intention, and a commitment to growth. Rebuilding begins with acknowledging the need for change. This recognition is not always easy, as it often comes in the wake of loss, failure, or a sense of disconnection. It is a moment of realization that the life we have been living no longer feels right, that something essential is missing or out of alignment. This awareness can be painful, as it forces us to confront the gaps between who we are and who we wish to be. Yet within this pain lies the seed of transformation. It is a call to action, a reminder that we have the power to create a different reality. To rebuild oneself, it is essential to first clear away the debris of the old self. This involves letting go of habits, beliefs, and patterns that no longer align with our vision for the future. These may include limiting beliefs that keep us stuck, relationships that drain our energy, or routines that fail to nourish our growth. Letting go is not an act of rejection, but of release. It is about making space for something new to emerge. This process can be challenging because it often means stepping into uncertainty, leaving behind the comfort of the familiar for the unknown. Once the space has been created, the work of rebuilding begins. This is a creative process, one that requires imagination and vision. It involves asking fundamental questions: who do I want to be? What values do I want to embody? What kind of life do I want to create? These questions serve as the foundation for the new self, providing clarity and direction. The answers may not come all at once, and that is okay. Rebuilding is not about rushing to a finished product, but about allowing the process to unfold naturally, with curiosity and openness. As we rebuild, we must also cultivate the skills and qualities needed to support our growth. These may include resilience, self-discipline, and a willingness to learn. Rebuilding oneself is not a passive process. It requires active engagement and effort. It involves setting goals, taking small steps toward them, and being patient with the inevitable setbacks along the way. Each step, no matter how small, contributes to the larger picture of who we are becoming. Over time, these incremental changes add up, creating a solid foundation for the new self to stand upon. Rebuilding oneself also requires a deep commitment to self-compassion. The process is not always smooth or linear. There will be moments of doubt, frustration, and even regression. In these moments, it is important to remember that growth is not about perfection, but about progress. Self-compassion allows us to navigate these challenges with kindness, recognizing that the path of transformation is rarely straightforward. It reminds us that we are human, that mistakes are part of the journey, and that each stumble is an opportunity to learn and grow. Community and connection can also play a vital role in the process of rebuilding. While the journey is deeply personal, it does not have to be undertaken alone. Surrounding ourselves with supportive people who believe in our potential can provide encouragement, perspective, and accountability. These connections remind us that we are not isolated in our struggles and that others have walked similar paths. Sharing our experiences and learning from others can inspire us to keep moving forward, even when the road feels difficult. Rebuilding oneself is ultimately an act of empowerment. It is a declaration that we are not defined by our past, our mistakes, or our circumstances. It is a recognition that we have the ability to shape our lives in meaningful and intentional ways. This process is not about erasing who we were, but about integrating the lessons of the past into a stronger, wiser, and more authentic version of ourselves. It is about stepping into our power, embracing our potential, and creating a life that reflects the truth of who we are. Rebuilding yourself isn't a one-time event, it's a lifelong art. Each moment offers a choice: stay within the safety of what you know, or step into the vast unknown of what you could become. The masterpiece of your life is not in its completion, but in its constant becoming. So I ask you now, will you let go of who you've been to make space for who you could be? The brush is in your hand. Start painting.